What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Elite Fantasy Hoops with me, Mike Zakarian. Today, we are on to Game Week 3 on Sorare NBA. We are going to be diving deep, trying to find the best value plays to help us win some sweet, sweet rewards. And of course, if you're new to Sorare NBA and you want to get started, click the link in the description and get started today. And of course, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when we're dropping that content. Now, we got a couple game weeks under our belt. We've maybe won some rewards at this point. We've had some fantastic calls in this show and a couple of duds as well. But it's all about looking forward now as we head into Game Week 3. Some of these plays are going to be ones we've talked about before. I'm not going to talk about a single rookie, okay? But we're going to start with one of the surprise teams of the NBA season, and I can't believe it. It's the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, I expected a lot of this stuff from James Harden, which we're going to talk about here in a second, but man, we bought a zoo. Ivica Zubac has been absolutely crushing early on, especially with that two-man game, doing a little bit of everything. The Clippers have played 2 games so far this season, losing a tight overtime thriller against the Phoenix Suns, and then just went into Denver in the Mile High Club and got themselves a W. So let's start with James Harden. The offense is absolutely flowing through him. Harden's going to cap at 39. Hasn't shifted too much so far 2 games into the season. He projects for 63 Sorare points. Again, these are just projections, but for Game Week 3, he is the 3rd highest projected play on the slate. But a little game theory to talk about. I don't know if people are going to be focusing James Harden in their champion lineup. Because of that high ceiling, if he's your 2nd or 3rd guy into your lineup, you have a real shot at finding your way under the podium. However, because his cap is only 39, I do think there's ways to kind of finagle him into a contender lineup with some of the other value plays, but we also have the daily game wrinkle. How many people are just going to be trying to access those daily rewards with James Harden in their contest? The Big Z has a cap of only 29 and projects for 44. And one of my favorite things about Zubac, and honestly this Harden-Zubac combo, is their ceilings don't impact one another. Sometimes when you think about, let's say, the Boston Celtics, if Jason Tatum gets 60, do we really think Jaylen Brown is getting 50 in that game? However, if Harden eats, so does Zubac, because what we've seen from James Harden is he's been a dish diamond guy, and a lot of those assists are going to the big man in Zubac. And then if Zubac is playing with Kevin Porter Jr. and he's going to be clanking those bricks, he can pick up those offensive rebounds for putbacks. So with a cap at 29, projecting for over 44, Harden and now Zubac are my 2 favorite plays for this slate, and we're gonna just stay with the Los Angeles Clippers, and it's storming Norman Powell. Norman, we've talked about a handful of times already this season, whether it's been in earlier value hunting episodes or even on Live Before Lock, which you should be tuning into before every single slate on Mondays at 5 p.m. and on Fridays at 5 p.m. And I also have some breaking news for you. If you tuned in to our most recent Live Before Lock show on Friday, we were joined by Worldwide Wop, Rob Perez. Well, guess what? My guy's going to be hanging out with us every single week for Live Before Lock for the foreseeable future. So what a get for all of us, huh? But let's go back to Norman Powell, who just yesterday absolutely ripped the heart outs of the Denver Nuggets as he was finding each and every bucket. Now, Norman Powell's cap is only 18, and I got to tell you, I feel like his floor is probably 25. So even if we get a floor game from Powell in this current iteration of the Los Angeles Clippers, he's still outpacing his cap by 7. However, he projects for 35. That is massive ceiling. And all 3 of these Clippers, you could put them in any of these contests. Maybe not the underdog unless you're rolling out those rookies, but all 3 make a ton of sense for champion, a ton of sense for contender, and a ton of sense for the daily game. So the real challenge for this slate, if you own all these Clippers, is not whether you play them or not, it's where you play them. All right, next up, we're going down to Texas, and it's the Dallas Mavericks, who have 3 games this game week. So a lot of Mavs are going to be popping, but I'm going to be focusing on Kyrie Irving. Kyrie's going to cap at 34, and he projects for 51. However, I wonder how many people are going to go back to the well and put Kyrie into the lineups, as he's kind of disappointed in the first couple of games this season. 3 games this game week. Even if Luka doesn't sit, if Luka plays all 3 games, we're still getting 3 cracks at it to see if Kyrie Irving can hit that ceiling performance. But if Luka does sit, then we are going to have that opportunity to just get an absolute smash. And with a cap at 34, similar to the other plays that we've talked about so far, Kyrie can probably fit in any one of those contests. All right, we've been living in the mid-range for the most part outside of Norman Powell. Let's do some dumpster diving. Let's get a little bit lower. Another guy we've talked about each and every game week so far is Dyson Daniels. The Atlanta Hawks, kind of a surprise start to the NBA season, right? They rattled off 2 quick W's, and the offense looks like it's clicking on all cylinders early. Trae Young looks incredible so far for Atlanta, but Dyson Daniels, again, is going to continue to be out there. His cap has gone from 13 all the way up to 14, and yet he still projects for 29 fantasy points. So Dyson Daniels, an absolute staple in all of your lineups. He actually has enough upside that I think he can be one of your last pieces in a champion lineup to try to boost up the rest of your roster. However, he is an elite contending lineup play. Now, I've got 3 more guys in this range that we're going to talk about that I don't like as much, but I do think can access some of a ceiling, and then I'll end with one of my favorite plays, another one we have talked about earlier this week. But let's go to Boston, kid. Fast PP, Payton Pritchard, who had a terrible shooting night against the Knicks, but since then has lit up both the Wizards and the Pistons. Against Detroit last night, in 19 minutes, he scored 19 points. But what I've been really liking about Payton Pritchard is not that he's just secured his role off the bench. He seems to be their first or second guy off the bench night in and night out, but he's also controlling the second unit. They use him quite a bit. So Pritchard, with only a cap of 11, projects for over 24. Now, the Celtics have 2 games this game week, and I don't believe they're a back-to-back. However, 1 game against Milwaukee, who famously likes to get cooked against guards. Then the second game against the Pacers, which we've talked about at length, how that is always a fast-paced environment. So sign me up for the Payton Pritchard minute. Now we're going to get a little grosser, and the vibes have been very bad for the Denver Nuggets as they dropped another game, as we talked about earlier with the Clippers. But Payton Watson, the defensive juggernaut, maybe not an offensive juggernaut, but he has a cap of 7 and he projects for 20 so rare fantasy points. Now, there's definitely some risk here because the bench has been an absolute dumpster fire for the Denver Nuggets. Outside of Julian Strawther, who we've talked about before in other videos, and even though he hasn't been lighting up the scoreboard, you wouldn't be taking him over a cap of 35 guy. The fact that his cap is so low and in limited minutes is able to fill up the stat sheet, he's been a great so rare fantasy play. But again, the Russell Westbrook experience hasn't been super successful this earlier in the season. Michael Malone's going to have to do some real finagling there with the bench lineup to try to get some sort of spark, and maybe we see more Payton Watson minutes. I also think people are going to be a little burned by the most recent Payton Watson performance against the Clippers, where he barely did anything. However, again, with a cap of 7, he doesn't have to do too much to get there. And because he's a big defensive guy, that means steals and blocks. We have an opportunity to really crush that value. Can't stress enough. This is probably the riskiest of all of the plays that we have talked about so far. And let's keep the risk level high. We're going to light the beam, although they haven't been able to do that yet because the Kings can't seem to get a W. Kevin Huerter. So Huerter has found his way into the starting lineup. He's not logging the same type of minutes that the other starters are in Fox, Sabonis, and DeRozan because of what Malik Monk does for them off the bench. He kind of closes games for him, but Huerter is starting, playing somewhere between 25 and 28 minutes a game. And last night against the Lakers, he seemed to have found the 3-point shot again, going 4 for 7 from 3, dropping 14 points, 2 boards, and assists, and a couple of steals. So again, with a cap of only 13 from Kevin Huerter, he's projecting for 25 so rare fantasy points. There is definitely some risk because if the shot's not falling, he's going to get yanked earlier by Mike Brown. However, he doesn't have to do much to surpass the cap. Projects for 25. We like Kevin Huerter. All right, I've got one more play for you this game week, but we do have another rare tier card, and I really enjoyed the comments so much after the last video we did that we're going to run that back. Who was the so rare play that hurt you the most in game week 2? All you have to do is put that into the comments. Let me know what your so rare username is, and then before lock on Monday, we'll draw a winner for another rare tier card. And if you're looking for more so rare and underdog content, and you want that content before anybody else, make sure you take a look at our membership program. Get you early access to videos like this. We do a live after dark show that's right after live before lock, where we give away another rare tier card and just kind of hang out a little bit. And we also do a daily show Monday through Friday just for our members to take a look at the so rare daily contest. All right, the last play of this slate, I'm looking at Jordan Hawkins again from the New Orleans Pelicans. This past game week, he had a cap of 3, and we saw him cook all the way up to 34 so rare points. His cap has now gone up to 5. He projects for 18 so rare fantasy points, and I honestly think that ceiling is higher again. Yes, Zion's back, but they're without DeJounte Murray now for 4 to 6 weeks, and Hawkins seems to be one of their offensive firepowers that they are bringing off the bench. And I said this last week in the video and then on live before lock, even though his projection looked great last game week, where he had a cap of 3 and he projected for similarly 17 to 18 fantasy points, I don't think the projections are really taking into account what his bench role is. So I'm going to be rolling out Jordan Hawkins. Honestly, until his cap gets over like 12 or 13, he's going to continue to be a fantastic play, or until DeJounte Murray comes back. But there you have it. Those are the plays for game week 3. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Again, if you haven't taken the time to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, go ahead and do this. Share this with friends. Let's take us to the moon. Best of luck in game week 3, and we'll see you live before lock.